We were going to start off with the Cavs topic, but then Jimmy Haslam opened his mouth about the Deshaun Watson trade. And
so you're a Browns fan. Just go ahead and let loose.
Yeah, so Jimmy Haslam, who has not been a good owner for the Browns since they took over, because he's the one who drafted Johnny Manziel in 2014. He's the one who drafted Baker Mayfield, although I liked Baker, but nonetheless, he admitted openly that, the Deshaun Watson trade was a mistake. It was a big swing and a miss. Like, duh. Yeah, it took you this long to realize that? Now, would he feel the same way if Deshaun hadn't gotten injured? I don't know. That's a big part of this that I don't know if a lot of people are talking about that. But it feels like maybe it's a step in the right direction for the Haslams to be admitting, yeah, we made a mistake on this. Because I'll tell you this. I feel like the Haslams are the AFC version of Jerry Jones. Now, I get it. Jimmy and D Haslam aren't nearly as in front of the camera and on the microphone as Jerry Jones is with the Dallas Cowboys. I totally understand that. But what I'm saying is, you look at the Cowboys, Jerry Jones is involved in every single little thing they do, whether it's personnel changes, who gets a contract when. We saw that with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, and we're seeing that play out with Micah Parsons. And all this and that. I could go on and on. It's the same thing with the Browns. The Haslams were the ones that, like I said, drafted Johnny Manziel, made the trade for Deshaun Watson, and a number of other personnel changes. And they're the ones that I think are driving the bus on, Andrew Berry getting hired and Kevin Stefanski keeping his job and, the firing of Mike Pettin. And, we had a good thing going with Brian Hoyer as our starting quarterback in 2014. But I believe it was the Haslams who stepped in and said, no, we want to see Johnny Manziel play. And I'm not trying to make this all about Johnny Manziel. That's not my point. It's just one of the more prominent examples of my overall point, which again is I feel like the Haslams are so hands-on with everything that it's just screwed up the Browns. Think about how many different quarterbacks and head coaches the Browns have had just with the Haslams in control. It's been ridiculous. I can't even name all of them. But again, I think my point is valid, and a lot of people would tend to agree with me. The Haslams are the AFC version of Jerry Jones, just without the camera and microphone part of it.
Okay. Now that you've spent 4 minutes soliloquy about your past as a Cleveland Browns fan, I'm going to evaluate what Jimmy Haslam said. And my takeaway from this is this. The worst thing that could have happened to this Cleveland Browns franchise was Deshaun Watson playing as well as he did 2 years ago in that comeback game against the Baltimore Ravens, and then he hurt his shoulder because it delayed the inevitable. The inevitable being Deshaun Watson trade was a mistake. He is not your franchise quarterback. The best thing to happen to this Browns franchise since that moment was not the fact that Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles on the field against the Cincinnati Bengals. It was the fact that Deshaun Watson re-ruptured his Achilles, presumably away from the facility off team ground, because that set the precedent of, he's not going to come back in 2025. He's probably not going to be the same quarterback, and it forced Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski and co. to go in a new direction at the most important position in sports. I think the more noteworthy point from Jimmy Haslam in this press conference isn't the fact that he said the Deshaun Watson trade was a mistake. Because what is he going to say? Oh, it wasn't a mistake. We still believe in Ford. No one's going to believe that garbage anymore.
Absolutely not. I fully agree with you on that one, but continue.
The most notable point he made was when he said, we can wait on a quarterback.
I do agree with you on that. But, and I know a lot of the mock drafts and whatnot have the Browns taking either Abdul Carter out of Penn State or Travis Hunter out of Colorado, the Heisman Trophy winner. But I'm still believing that they are going to go with Sheduer Sanders. And the reason why on that, circling back to my original point, is we've seen the Browns do this. They took a high-profile quarterback in Johnny Manziel in the first round. They took another high-profile quarterback in Baker Mayfield in the 2018 draft. So the Browns have a history of that. And with Sheduer being in that high-profile quarterback category, obviously not in the same manner as Baker Mayfield and Johnny Manziel, but I think you get what I'm saying here.
Well, you just answered your own question, because here's the thing. I agree with you that this could be all smokescreen, and we don't know what to believe at this point in the draft. I think the only thing we know for certain, that anybody knows for certain right now, is that Cam Ward will be selected number 1 by the Tennessee Titans.
Which, by the way, I think that is the right pick for them. But I'm just going off of what the Browns have shown me.
Well, my point is, you talked about, they went up and got Johnny Manziel, pretty high in the draft. Johnny Manziel was obviously a controversial figure, but some teams had him in their first round graded. Some people had him off their draft board. Baker Mayfield was projected to be a first-round talent. Some people didn't have him number 1 overall like the Browns did, but he was at least projected to be a first-round talent. From everything that we have heard coming out of the Combine and, this owners meeting, summit, whatever you want to call it here the last couple of weeks, it sounds like Cam Ward has separated from Sheduer Sanders. And I don't know if it's the fact that Sheduer, and obviously now that Dion is back in Colorado with that extension, if that had something to do with it. But it sounds like to me that Sheduer has fallen off boards, and some people view him as that he's in line with a Jalen Milroe, a Jackson Dart, a Kyle McCord, and being a second or a third round pick. And I do think the fact that Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam had dinner with Abdul Carter on the same night that Kevin Stefanski was at Jackson Dart's pro day. To me, you're not sending Stefanski to go watch Jackson Dart if you're locked in on Sheduer Sanders.
And I do hear you on that, and maybe I'm reading too much into like the Browns draft history, but I think you do. That is a big component of this discussion. And I know they've had meetings with Sheduer, so I don't think you can just dismiss that. It would be interesting, though, if they take Abdul Carter, because as you and I have talked about, Myles Garrett has been better when he's been paired with somebody on the opposite side.
Oh, every defensive lineman in the league is. I have made the argument that as good as Abdul Carter is, and him and Myles Garrett would be undoubtedly, maybe even day one, the best dynamic edge rusher duo in the National Football League. If you don't have a quarterback, you're still not going to win games. But which tells me, if the Browns are taking Abdul Carter, they will take somebody else in the draft, whether it's Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, McCord, Will Howard, even whoever. But Kenny Pickett will not be the starter week 1. They would have already worked out a framework deal for the Atlanta Falcons. And in my opinion, it would be a mistake because I don't think he has anything left. but I think it's more likely today that Kirk Cousins is your week 1 starter than Sheduer Sanders.
And there's been a lot of, I wouldn't say there's been a lot of smoke about that. I know.
There's been more smoke in the past 3 days than there have been.
Yeah. And a lot of that, I think, is fueled by that picture that's going around on social media.
Well, Kirk Cousins was here last week. I mean, he was at the Chipotle in Westlake, which for those of you that aren't in the Cleveland area, know it's 15 minutes away from my house.
That's the picture I'm talking about that's going around on social media, but I think the Browns have denied that it had anything to do with that.
They can deny that all they want. Why else would Kirk Cousins be in Westlake, Ohio?
Yeah, I know.
So, all right, well, speaking of draft moves, how about this? So the New York Giants, they now have 2 bridge quarterbacks on their roster, Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. And they're complete opposites. Russell Wilson is a moonball, sort of conservative, don't turn the football over. And Jameis is Mr. I don't care if there's 4 guys in the vicinity, I'm going to throw it and hope I make a play. But this tells me, we had the debate about what the hell are the Giants going to do at quarterback if they don't get Aaron Rodgers. This is it. They're not drafting a quarterback to me. You don't have 2 bridge quarterbacks on the roster and then draft another one. They may take a shot at someone in the 3rd or 4th round, but this absolutely to me takes Sheduer out of their sweepstakes.
Yeah, and we all don't forget Tommy DeVito, is still in that room too.
And he's going to be a camp body more than likely, especially if they draft someone. So I don't see it. Listen, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about the fact that they do have a left tackle. They do have a right tackle. They have a running back. They have an offensive weapon. Their defensive line is great. I think if the Browns pass on Abdul Carter would join the New York Giants. I think if the Browns take Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter is the most likely pick for the New York Giants. But this was a move to me that it said, hey, Jameis is going to back up Russ. We're going to try to win 7-8 games, and we're going to try to save our jobs. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
It's interesting that you say that because there was a video, I don't remember how long ago it was posted, but it was Adam Schefter saying, I don't think this takes them out of the Sheduer Sanders.
Yeah, and I don't believe that, and I don't know why he would think that. I mean, think about it logically, right? So they paid Jameis Winston, what was it, a 2-year contract worth 20-something million? I think it was $10 million a year, and now Russ has a 1-year deal. I mean, Jameis Winston is not going to be a 3rd-string quarterback. And for the record, I don't think it's a quarterback competition because I don't think Russell Wilson's a backup in the NFL. I think Russ is their starter.
I would agree with you. Stephen A. Smith has been saying, the Giants are on the level of the Jaguars in terms of travesty in the NFL over the past few years.
Oh, he's wrong. He's actually on the level. They're actually on the level of the Cleveland Browns. They've been worse. And at least the Jaguars got to an AFC Championship game with Blake Bortles.
That's true, but you look at the past couple of years, both teams have been pretty trash.
I don't know about that. The Jaguars won a playoff game. Remember, they came back a couple years ago against the Chargers, and they were 9-3 2 years ago until Lawrence got hurt. He hasn't been the same quarterback since. Last year, they were bad. Yes.
But
the Giants had one good year in the past 20 years. And the one good year they had, they won a wild card game in Minnesota. And then my team on our way to the Super Bowl blew their doors off. And that was essentially the end of the Daniel Jones era.
Yeah, that's true. I still remember when he had a wide open lane for a touchdown.
That was 2020 during the COVID season. I think it was I know it was a Thursday night game, week 7 or week 8 that year. Carson went for a touchdown pass to Corey Clement late in the game to win it. I'm getting completely off track here. The bottom line is the Giants are my rival in the NFC East. I've called them the Browns of the NFC for years because that's what they are. But It's like I don't know. I think there is a world this year where they are not in the basement in the NFC East.
And instead it would be Jerry's team in the
Yeah.
basement. Okay. But it'll be interesting. I have to tell you, that Browns Giants draft at 2 and 3 is so fascinating because I think what those two teams do really will shape what the rest of the first.
I completely agree with you, and I also feel this: if Sheduer does not go here by number 3, there is a world where he does not become a first-round pick.
Oh, I don't know about that because you got the Raiders sitting there, you got the Saints.
I don't think the Saints are taking a quarterback. I think the Saints are in full tank mode. I don't. They have not had any meetings with any quarterback. The Raiders, it sounds like they could be a surprise team, but it sounds like to me they're all in on Ashton Gentry, the running back of Boise State.
If they do that, though, who's going to be their quarterback?
Who do you think?
Not Gardner Minshew.
Your guy.
Oh, right, Gino. Silly me. Silly me. Wow. I forgot about it. I forgot the Raiders even traded for him.
And so your guy is there, and it sounds like with Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly's history, they don't want to go Sheduer. I think Sheduer would be a great fit in Vegas. Sounds like he's not going there, though.
Yeah. So I don't think he'll fall out of the first round, though.